The new president passes an act which gives rights to everyone, including fictional characters. Authors of controversial books start to be rounded up by the police and punished according to the rights they've violated. You, a fanfic writer, just killed the protagonist. The doorbell rings. We always knew our latest president was a bit of an off one. Sure, he tried, I suppose, in the safety of his own personal opinion. If you were to ask the president whether he thought he was doing the right thing, chances are he would say, "Of course." So when the whole world woke up one morning to find that the bill had been passed granting rights to fictional characters in novels and storybooks, you can only imagine what was on people's minds. He's a lunatic, he's barmy, he's absolutely lost the plot. And that wasn't even the worst part either. There was a tax that came with it. Every creature, being or person whom is a citizen under these new laws must now pay a tax depending on the risk their story's characters may be in. This tax wasn't restricted to just the citizens either. If your content was accessible within these borders, regardless as to whether you actually lived there, you could be applicable to the same taxation. If you tried to block your content from this country's viewership, once it had already been seen, it was seen as unlawful suppression. Those who attempted to hide, once these taxes had been levied against them, were seen as guilty of committing tax evasion. No one liked the president's new laws. No one thought they made sense. Just as it is with anything controversial though, good luck trying to fight the change on your own. Our country's youth, those dedicated to creating fan fiction and self-publishing online, were trying desperately to solve this. No one could outright combat the way things were. It would be lunacy to try and do that. But by hiding their identity online from the get-go, by never revealing their true identities from the start, and by networking through their fandom communities, there were hopes, nay, whisperings in the wind, that maybe, just maybe, people could network and come together almost like a family. That was the suspected plot though anyway. Through the authoritarian enforcements of these laws, you could never be completely trustful of who was who. There were whisperings and rumours of government enforcement agents lurking around online, always watching, never listening. You couldn't truly be sure of anything, especially with the enactments within these borders as well. Authors and creators within these lands were forced to create their art through an increasingly dull viewpoint, to risk investigations over a differing interpretation or misunderstanding. Granted, some took it as a challenge and admirably rose to it, but of course the demand for actual interesting topics, risky contraband, skyrocketed at the passing of these sequences of event. The citizens craved it, the enforcement agents craved it. Stoked to be getting paid to view exciting and interesting art and stories, there was an underbelly of those who rose to dob each other in. You could, of course, justify having a lot more freedom if it meant you were turning people in and generating progress. Wiping out competition was an added bonus too. It was rumoured that even the president himself was invested in this self-proclaimed risky content, as it was the risky content that was almost the most exciting. The most exciting content had the best developed plot lines, the most highly dimensioned characters. It was like comparing caviar to breadcrumbs, and the whole world was high off it. And this was where you come in. Tiptoeing your way through the system since you were at least 12, you learned early on how much a person can get away with if they know just how to play an act. Seen as the goody two-shoes in school, you quickly learned that those teachers had established as good kids were more likely to have blind eyes turned towards them in comparison to the troublemakers, the outsiders, and the rejects. So of course you applied this to other areas of life as well. Within the borders of political unrest, great social insecurity, and little to no guarantee in anything, it didn't take too much to realise that nothing could ever be looked upon as a safe option. Who's to say that next month it wouldn't be the beer makers and the craft brewers who were deemed as violating people's clear thinking or the laws? Who's to say the month after that it wouldn't be anyone at all? So you knuckled down and kept quiet. Opinions were dangerous things to have anyway. Never saying much, never doing anything that could draw attention, even if it was good or praiseworthy. You did well in school and learnt to blend in. The online profiles started as a means to showcase one's writing assignments, little ordinary tasks and showpieces as a portfolio for good work. You were friends with all your classmates. Well, online friends anyway. You knew well enough to network and use people as allies, even if saying too much wasn't an option. And as you grew throughout your teen years, so did your online presence. Safe little English and writing assignments quietly progressed into something a little more. Developmental pieces showing character progression, as well as the development of plot points in a more advanced level of skill. People became hooked, and what you created started getting recommended. Never let things get to your head though. Don't chase the fame. Don't do stupid shit that garners too much attention. People within your online community, sticking their necks out at a risk for the government, were starting to pull the dollars in to compensate said risk. They were bartering away coins for compromise, a get-ahead-quick scheme that seemed just a little too good to be true. It was all likes and donations until their time came, and they were suddenly taken off their corners of the internet. Get ahead quick, they say. But your actions' consequences don't just disappear when the day's views and advantages. So you played it safe, quietly building your following for the long haul, advancing and pushing little limits so softly that it was never even noticed. You had the whole world invested, and they didn't even know who you are. Until one day, that fateful night came. In your story, after many twists and turns, you had to kill off the protagonist. You'd played it safe so long. With so many fans clamouring in the comments section, you'd pushed and pushed and pushed things out to drag on for so long. You stringed people along, you played at their very heartstrings. And now it was unavoidable. There was no choice, you simply had to kill him off. After what felt like an age of waiting for your internet to upload, you hit the publish button, and for merely a second, your latest episode waited, hanging in the dark folds of the internet, pushing through the notifications on so many people's phones. The comments started rolling in, the feedback picked up, swelled and grew like a tidal wave. Your eyes gleamed as they watched the notifications filling up your screen. And then it happened, that fateful knock at the door. You were so engaged you almost missed it, but just as you turned your head towards the sound, the wooden door splintered from impact and armed government enforcement agents flooded every corner of your room. How could you? The static screech cut through the air. Your mouth was dry and there was a bitter taste spreading across the surface of your tongue. How even could you? Oh heck, the rumours were real. The president himself was being live streamed through the body panels of the government enforcement agents, and there was betrayal in every eye. Desperate times call for desperate measures. You had no weapons at your mercy, but the pen was indeed mightier than the sword. I have the end to these stories, you blurt out as a threat, holding up a stack of scribbled notes. Seize him! The notes were torn from you and vanished. They couldn't stop what was in your mind. Cersei dies. A disembodied screech howls through the screen. Tyrion dies before achieving his quest to freedom. They're coming with a rag to stop your mouth with. There's only one thing left to say. Order 366. A loading bar appears in the centre of your computer screen. The enforcement agents try to stop the upload, but they can't get past the locked security system. What's that? This is a backup ending I have written in anticipation for times such as this. You have as much time as it takes for an upload to complete, but you cannot stop what it started. I have written out and developed the most anticlimactic conclusion for all plot points, and the endings I have developed for each of my characters is unfortunate, shall we say. The loading bar has vanished and has now been replaced with a pending sign. You see dismay flickering in the eyes of everyone in this room. They are all fans of your work. Perhaps we may find it convenient to rediscuss the terms of this evening.